everybody, and welcome to my video presentation on estimating project costs. My name is Jack Churches and I'm a student from Mackay, and today I will be presenting to you the main points required to effectively predict the end cost of a project from somewhere at the starting point in the initiating phase. Now, to predict the cost of a project, we want to be able to do this from pretty much as soon as we receive a client brief, or even before that, if possible, would be better. Now, it's very important that we know the cost of a project, as money is limited resource. No company in the world wants to pay all the money they have to get one project completed. So it's very important that we can effectively predict the costs so they know if the project will be viable. Now, as we all know, both the design service team and the client team will need to know how to calculate the costs of a project, at least roughly anyway. As for the design service team, they need to be able to offer a rough calculation for the client team so they can impress them and break the deal, so to speak, for their proposal. While the client team, it's important for them to know roughly what their project should cost, so they will know if it's viable and they can know if the design teams are trying to rip them off and pay a lot more than what it's actually worth.
So first of all, what exactly is estimating of project costs? Estimating of project costs is a process of predicting the capital or the funds, the amount of money, required for the successful completion of a project. It is always based on the costing at the exact point in time the estimations are being evaluated, but may also consider predicted cost changes that are expected depending on how high the chance of that change is likely to occur. So, for example, if the cost of labour is expected to rise or fall over the duration of the project, then you might predict from that point on, if it's a 80 or 90% likely chance to change, you might predict from that point on it's only going to cost you whatever the change is in labour. However, the benefit to sticking to one cost throughout the whole prediction initially is that we can have a conservative, or we should have a conservative cost prediction at the end. Now we need to think about what resources could possibly have to go into our estimations of our project costs. So you got to think about labour or human resources, materials, equipment, services that might be hired, facilities that might have to be hired, inflation allowances, costing of financing, and contingency costs. So contingency costs are what your cost would be if something goes wrong. Obviously you have to consider what them risks are and have contingency plans in place to cover them, and that's where the contingency cost helps out. So now we will have a look at the requirements for estimating costs according to the Project Management Body of Knowledge Guide, or the PMBOK Guide. As it says, we need to have the following inputs: cost management plan, human resource management plan, scope baseline, project schedule, risk register, enterprise environmental factors, and organizational process assets. These are all just some of the inputs required to effectively estimate costs for a project. And then there's some tools and techniques that will be required. So there's expert judgment. You need to know how to analogous estimate, parametric estimate, bottom-up estimating, three-point estimating, then reserve analysis, cost of quality, project management software, vendor bid analysis, and of course group decision making techniques are all fundaments required to use with them inputs. And then the outputs as a positive should be activity cost estimates, basis of estimates, and project document updates with all the now verified estimated costs for the project. There are a few important things we need to remember when estimating the project costs. First of all, the cost estimates need to include the initial costs, which are the time and effort that went into researching for the bid documents, such as the project charters and offer of services letter. The cost trade-offs and risks are to be considered, so that includes looking at how much it's going to cost to take a risky approach versus how much it's going to cost to take the safer product. So you need to look at that. So if it's a high risk to get a bit higher, to get a bit cheaper, then is it worth it? That's what you got to look at. The project costs estimated can also be sometimes calculated in, not always in a currency. They are often in the currency which the company uses, but sometimes they can be placed in working hours or labour hours, which this eliminates the fluctuation of the currency that's normally used. So that way, further down the track, it can be, when it's exactly required, it can be easily changed into the cost at that point in time. The cost must also, that's been estimated, must also be constantly reviewed all the time as the project progresses, as this means that assumptions and risks will have been tested, so you know where the company stands and their movements on them. But also, as the project progresses, you also are going to have more information which will make the cost more and more accurate that has been estimated. So that's going to help with the accuracy of it, so you can keep updating your client on how the cost is looking against how it was projected initially, to give them feedback which they're definitely going to want. So now we know how important estimating project costs are and what's important to do so, we need to look at what's the best way to implement them. Well, according to Engineering Design and Introduction, in figure 16.15 on page 440, the best way to organise and create your estimated project costs document is to use an Excel spreadsheet. Basically, you can just put everything in and use all the versatile functionalities of Excel with all the stuff that allows it to automatically calculate itself with other cells, and you'll very quickly be able to summarize all of the costs this project should use. And the best part about it is you can also insert it so that when you know that stuff's going to rise, say if you had to take a loan out for the project, you'll know how you'll be able to monitor the interest on it, on the costing of the project. That all but concludes today's presentation. I hope you have learned something about estimating project costs and the importance of the process, as well as what is important in the process. If you would like any more information, there is plenty of more on offer in the two textbooks I used to conduct this presentation. They are the Project Management Body of Knowledge Guide, the PMBOK Guide, or the Engineering Design and Introduction book. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you can leave some constructive criticism for me, something that will help me improve for future and help with my lifelong learning. Thank you very much.